leaders have to understand where AI is. It is no longer, you can't just sit around and say AI does this, to your point, right? If you're sitting there and hovering, saying, hey, AI is going to sing and dance and, make my tea for me and make my dinner for me and all of that all in one shot, it's not there. But guess what? You're not going to know that without you as a leader, as a board member, understanding its capability, right? So, and that goes all the way down to the line level, right? At line level, it's easy to just say, well, this is not going to work for me. This is not going to happen, right? But what is it that we've done as a self-accountability to understand? I was super great. I'm always super grateful to see board members taking as much interest in supply chain, sustainability, AI enablement, right? And I want to see more of our functional leaders and our line leaders take that same level of lens, because otherwise change won't happen to you, right? Whether you like it or not.
Thank you so much for joining another edition of The Never-Ending Climb for Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Today, we have the great pleasure of being joined by Purvee Kondal. And Purvee is a practitioner who grew up right from the front line all the way up to the top, and a big believer in using technology to unlock potential. And she has done something so many people are seeking today. She's earned that seat at the board table to help drive change. Purvee, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So we were talking about where change starts, and we clearly agree on this. Can you share some more?
Well, the change starts from within, right? There's no guy or gal that's going to come in and say, I'm going to make change happen for you. Guess what? If they did do it, you're going to, fight it tooth and nail anyway, right? So at the end of the day, change starts from within. And we have to be self-aware that it starts from us, and we've got to help lead it.
And I think this is one of those things where today more than ever, bringing our best self, bringing the right attitude, the right mindset to our work, even if we feel like there's a fire going on, pausing on that and focusing on the way that we show up to make sure that we're bringing our best self to contribute to the change. That takes looking in the mirror, and that can be really uncomfortable for some folks, can't it?
Yeah, it can be. And I think that's where I think we learn about ourselves, right? And, for me, it goes back to character, right? If we've lived a life where we know that we're doing the positive things, then, things will work itself out. There's no, dragon that we need to slay out there, So yeah, it's just, I think, being comfortable in your own skin, recognizing that we also need to evolve every single day. There's no constants, right? Change happens, whether we like it or not. So being more comfortable with accepting the change and being part of it in a positive manner versus negative.
Yeah, and I think there's something too of there was a leader at one of our customers who recently shared with their team that, you're either on board or you're not. And these days, being not on board with AI making such an impact in the world, in the business world, in professional kinds of roles that have an administrative component to them, maybe not the best time to be standing in the way of change. This is a pro tip for any of your listeners out there. I think this gets into, there's one part of look in the mirror and change starting from within, but this also, as a leader, there's a series of things that we can do to help avoid the stall that can sometimes happen, or avoid that lull or delay in the middle of, those projects or implementations or transformations that are a little bit bigger than a bread box. You've been through this. What have you unlocked? What advice would you have to your peers?
I would say, right, change is first and foremost, it's hard. It does it, even for those of us who are willing change agents, it's hard. Every change is hard. There's no perfect recipe. There is no playbook that says, if you do X, Y, and Z, therefore it shall happen. It's not like that, right? Expect the unexpected, right? I think that's number one. And then kind of, the other piece of this is, I think also understanding, does your organization have a culture? Does the organization culture allow for the change, right? Because you could have leaders that want, that have amazing foresight, vision, to take it to the next level. But if the organizational culture hasn't been shaped where there is that ability, that the leader will struggle, as will the organization, right? At the end of the day, eventually it's going to happen anyway. To your point, right? Like AI, right? I mean, 2 years ago, people didn't want to embrace even something as simple as spend analytics or project management tools to bring visibility, right? Things like that.
Right.
And now, guess what? AI is not only at our doorstep knocking, right? It is in your house, in your home, in your work, and everything that we do. So we do need to make sure that we're part of the change in a positive way and not in a negative way,
Yeah.
right? And some of
Yeah.
the it's
It's
just
it has to happen. It's not just AI is not just for a better recipe for chicken for dinner, right? This is so much more, right? I think this is one of those ability to appreciate what it does and then the limits of how far it's ready for enterprise. I know there's some stats out there that are talking about where so many things don't work out. Well, you know what? There's also attempts to have it sing and dance when it doesn't have a voice. So maybe it can dance but not sing. And these are the kinds of things where, as a leader, doing some of that early homework, we can also avoid the stall by double checking the brochure to make sure that whatever goal we've got, we can make sure that it's really there beyond a shiny demo.
Yeah, Sean, it's a really spot on point. I actually was in an earlier meeting today, where a lot of board members, amazing personalities with knowledge that are, so amazingly important for us to learn from. And I'll tell you, one of the messaging on that was leaders have to understand where AI is. It is no longer, you can't just sit around and say AI does this, to your point, right? If you're sitting there and hovering, saying, "Hey, AI is going to sing and dance and make my tea for me and make my dinner for me and all of that all in one shot," it's not there. But guess what? You're not going to know that without you as a leader, as a board member, understanding its capability, right? So, and that goes all the way
Yeah.
down to the line level, right? At line level, it's easy to just say, "Well, this is not going to work for me. This is not going to happen," right? But what is it that we've done as a self accountability to understand? I was super great. I'm always super grateful to see board members taking as much interest in supply chain, sustainability, AI enablement, right? And I want to see more of our functional leaders and our line leaders take that same level of lens, because otherwise change will happen to you, right? Whether you like it or not. And
And I think the change will happen to you, and then there's a matter of, are you the willing participant? So I think this is where there's a significant change that's in process already. And then the question is, how do you surf the wave, or are you going to get blown off the surfboard and have trouble staying upright, right? Are you going to get up on that wave? And I think to do that, you've got to start paddling or start, actually swimming with the board. If any surfers out there, if you want to get up, you start paddling. Otherwise, the wave is going to come and crash on you and wash you right over, and that's no fun. So this decision that people are making right now to either get with it and get proactive and learn and help be part of that, or not, is already creating decisions. And it's one of the key deciding factors in decisions of some of the top leadership and whether or not those are people that are still going to be there or not. And it's an uncomfortable truth, but I think it's only fair to say it out loud.
No, absolutely. I mean, right? That's one of the conversations at the board level that we see where, there is a conversation that says, well, okay, if you are not an expert in this and if you can't add the value, perhaps you shouldn't be in there. And I think that conversation needs to go to the C-suite, line, middle management, line management, right? All of that. And I think it's a hard one, right? It's a hard one. But I've always said you have to make two things. One is you have to leave the place in a better, world in a better place than you found it. That's number one. And number two,
Oh,
as
yeah, never ending climb right there.
and then the other one is, quite frankly, to be honest, make yourself replaceable. If you can make yourself replaceable, you can go on and do other things. I mean, look, for me, the fact that I'm able to do some of the things that I'm doing right now, it is absolutely because I had interest beyond a silo that says, I'm just going to do contract. I'm just going to do negotiate. No, I have a bigger vision than that. And I needed to pursue that. Right. And so I could have sat and complained about it my entire career or do something about it. Right. And I did something about it. There was no manager or no organization or no leader that was saying, hey, let me open this path for you and you go do this. No. It's on us. Just like change, just like right implementations, it is on us. We've got to be the change we want to see in the world, right?
Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth, Purvee. That is so perfect. And I think that's part of the sense of accountability that more and more the leaders of tomorrow are already demonstrating why they're going to be there through their actions, through the accountability, through the mindset that they bring, the change that they create. And there's a separation between leaders who want to have a seat at the table but don't execute, and those who want to have a seat at the table and then they make some good things happen. They leave the world better than they found it. They build themselves better than they used to be so that they can be the leader that they need to be to unlock that change, to unlock that transformation. And that's a really powerful difference in the mindset of those who make it and those who wash out. And for you to be where you are, I think this is something where the two of us can agree that that sense of personal accountability is really precious. And that is one of those things that as you build that, no one can take that away from you. Even when you do build yourself or work yourself out of a job, the next challenge is right there around the corner.
100%. And I think I think
I love that.
yeah, you hit the nail on the head. If you are not personally challenging yourself, you're not going to challenge the future, right? Then that means you fell into a status quo mode, and eventually, right, that will catch up to you. I mean, that's the fundamental, right? I'll give you an example. I was talking
Yeah.
to a friend of mine yesterday, and they asked me. They said, so I recently had a NASDAQ actually just published my thoughts on a Center for Board Excellence. And he asked me, he said, you are a supply chain, procurement professional. How the heck did you land there? And I said, well, it's not my first time. I've collaborated with them, and a couple of years ago, 2, 3 years ago, because again, I had a vision of where I expect this function and where we need to be. So I didn't go in it with a, hey, where do I get it? What role do I, next title do I get out of this? Right? It was never that. It was always about how do I influence the people at the right level that if they can see what I can see, if I can just open up that little kimono a little bit and they can see it and they see the value in it, they will get there, right? And I shared with him. I said, well, so yeah, we collaborated again. They're doing another piece, right, on topics that, and I'm just grateful. I am grateful that there are people who really understand this stuff. They make decisions. They make the world happen. That they care and want to listen to somebody like me, right? I'm a practitioner growing up, right? But I'm grateful for that. And I want to see more of procurement and sourcing professionals develop that mindset to say, you know what? To have a seat at the table, we need to be respectful. We also need to have a point of view. We need to have a voice. We need to know and understand, right? And you have to balance all of that. And otherwise, we're going to be a back office function forever. And then we can all complain about it for generations, how we don't have what we want, but yet we did nothing to make the change. So that's kind of my journey.
There's such a contrast between the person that asks for why isn't something better and the person who creates the change to make it better. And that contrast, I think, is often what unlocks the seat at the table in the first place, because it creates the conditions where that person has had to go and do the work to develop the perspective, to build the expertise, to have an opinion that others value, as opposed to waiting to be told what to think. And I think this is one of those, or waiting for somebody else to go do something about it because somebody really should. And the contrast in those who really make a difference in the world to leave it better than they found it, to me, that epitomizes that never-ending climb. And I know that there are people in everybody's organization today who, given the right nudge, given the right opportunity, will go make those things happen. And I think those are some beautiful opportunities for us to seize. Purvee, I think there's an opportunity to kind of land the plane with the way that you think about a problem and the way that you think about your role in solving that. I feel like there's something that would really serve the community if more people approached and thought about problems the way that you do.
Thank you so much. I would say, I'd say probably first and foremost, I think like the business. I've been told by my stakeholders, I think like the business. And that to me is always, well, why wouldn't I think like a business? I think in P&L, I think in ROI, right? But I think that's one of the things that I think there's an opportunity for our functions to really elevate that skill. You need to be able to do a business case and ROI, and if you can think that way, the seat at the table becomes very easy, right? It's very much an enabler. Now, granted, you could have a organizational culture may not allow you to do that because that's what they've been trained, right? People have been trained on thinking,
Yeah.
hey, there's a procurement person, go away, right? Versus, hey, I'm talking the business language, I'm having the conversation. And I think we need to shift that mindset, right? I think that to me is critical if we want to and continue to have a seat at the table. If we can't think like the business, we can't talk like the business, and that trust will never be there, right?
Yeah. It's the difference between being a procurement curmudgeon throwing the policy at somebody and understanding why what they were asking for mattered in the first place. That language is so important, and the language is such a beautiful thing because whether you're in speaking English or French or Spanish or speaking procurement or IT or sales, each group has a little bit of a different language to them, but being able to translate and speak in a way that the other will understand us and the message is really received is such a powerful skill. And I think that's one of the things where that emotional intelligence and that language development, the communication skills are something that I think our education systems can do a wonderful job to help tune up. And even using AI today, just as a quick tune up, one of the folks in our team that I've been coaching was learning about they're learning a different language, but also they're learning about a new group, a new function, a new department. And they were keeping a window open saying, hey, if I was talking to a sales leader or a sales director, how would I talk about? And there was a series of suggestions that came out. So even if you're trying to learn, the tools are there for us and they're free or darn near free. And we can go take that and learn from it and make the most of it. Purvee, I'm so grateful for you sharing today, and I am grateful for all of the people like you who bring that positive, leave things better attitude to the world. And I hope to see all of you next week. Thank you very much. This has been another edition of The Never Ending Climb for Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Purvee, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate you.